This is Quincy Carter from Decatur, Georgia, former Dallas Cowboys quarterback, and you're listening to Scoop B Radio.
The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles will duel it out on Sunday. Who better than to bring in the legend, Quincy Carter? Played for the Dallas Cowboys, played for the New York Jets, but we know him as the first black quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Brother, what's going on?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. Do you find it weird, or did you find it weird, or did you find this out when they named you the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, that you were the first black quarterback to ever play or start for that team?
Well, I knew I was the first to start, but now I do have fond memories of Randall Cunningham, actually, and Rodney Peete filling in a couple games. I think in my teenage days, I think maybe I was in high school, early high school, 9th, 10th grade year. But to start, the first game of the season, actually to start for 3 years in a row, the first game of the season. It was humbling, I would say, to say the least.
No, I dig it. What was your draft process like? Who came to see you when you were in college? How did you know during that process that the Cowboys were interested in you?
Well, it was interesting. Before my junior year, it was me, Mike Vick, and Drew Brees at the top of the, kind of quarterback draft coming out. And unfortunately, I got hurt my junior year, about the 6th, 7th game of the year. Matter of fact, it was this week against, you can say last week, last Saturday or what have you. But I got hurt against the Florida Gators, and I broke my thumb. And so I had to make a decision whether or not I wanted to come back to school or not. And it was tough. Mark Richt was coming in for his first year. We were going to be a very young team. We had a lot of people leaving. And I made the decision, to go ahead and enter the draft. Now, when I entered the draft, Mel Kiper Jr., I'll never forget, made it a point to tell everybody how far down I was on the board. But then that became reality, too, Scoop, when I went to the Combine. And I didn't have very many teams that interviewed me. I know the Baltimore Ravens with Shaq Harris, and also the Raiders. The Cowboys was kind of, standoffish a little bit. But during my workout at school, it became pretty evident that they were very interested. So it kind of went like this, Scoop. The Raiders and Cowboys were the top two teams. The Cowboys told my agent before the draft, rest in peace to Eugene Parker, but told my agent before the draft that they were going to draft me. He kind of assured me that, if Jerry was going to say something and go out on a limb like that, then he was going to do it. But it was a matter of when they were going to get me. And so they traded down their first pick. Actually, I don't think we had a first pick that year, but we had a second pick. But they kept trading down. But by the time, the Raiders were close enough, pick-wise and order-wise, the Cowboys went and got me with that 53rd pick in the second round.
Bill Parcells, of course, nabbed you. He was the head coach at the time. When I look at Parcells, I think of a guy that's been around, that's been respected, but a guy that is quotable for a lot of reasons. You look at certain people in history. You look at Charles Barkley. You look at some of your favorite uncles. They all have that factor, your grandfathers. What is a conversation like with Bill Parcells?
Well, it's blunt. It's honest. You know what you're getting. And so for me, honestly, it was a match made in heaven. My high school coach, Coach Godfrey, was like that. My offensive coordinator was very instrumental in my development as a youngin' in high school. Steve Davenport was like that. One of my baseball coaches growing up, playing baseball, travel ball, Ron Landy with East Cobb Astros was like that. Coach Donning was a straight shooter. And so, now here comes Bill Parcells, which was another straight shooter. And so it was the bluntness of our conversations, but it was the wisdom that you got out of every conversation, whether it was, how you go about your business and preparing for Sundays, X's and O's, life in general, heck, women. You got it all, from Coach. And I really, really appreciated that relationship.
If a fly was to be on a wall in a conversation or a meeting with both Bill Parcells and Jerry Jones, what would that fly be treated to?
Wow. Some real in-depth, all-out football business. And that's what both of those guys were about, their whole life centered and still does, to some degree with Coach Parcells, even though he's retired, but everybody calls him. We're still, good buds to this day. But it's all business. It's all about football. It's all about, wanting to be great. And it's a whole lot of wisdom, spewing out both of those mouths.
What are the differences in both the personalities as well as the wisdom between one, Bill Parcells, and two, Rex Ryan?
That's a tough one because I don't know Rex personally,
Okay.
but Rex seems like he's a straight shooter himself, so I never got to be around Rex, so I think that'd be a little unfair for me to, be a little bit more, to talk on that. I'll say the least.
That's fair. Any Given Sunday, I think, was one of the most brilliantly created movies. When I look at the history of certain sports films, I feel like Any Given Sunday set up what football movies would look like for the next 10 to 20 years, just like He Got Game set the stage for basketball. Those were two seminal, pivotal movies. And the thing that really drew me in that film was the role of Al Pacino and the head coach. And the thing that drew me specifically was when Jamie Foxx, the character that he played, was, he played with Willie Beeman, and he went to dinner. Are those type of dinners in that film realistic? The pregame speech, the conversations, you bring certain things to that coach, like those things that people talk about in the locker room, certain things you should do, and are those conversations with coaches very at all similar to that actuality in that film?
I think to a degree they are. I think it was well played out, to be honest with you. The honesty of Al Pacino, what he wanted out of his quarterback, kind of takes me back a little bit as we actually, are having this conversation. But I think to a degree it does, and I think it was a little bit before its time because, I think about, guys like myself, guys like Michael Vick, guys like Cam Newton, with a lot more personality. Let's put the elephant out on the table right now. But being black, which is different for owners and GMs and head coaches, to deal with different personalities, and then to know, to try to see what you're going to get, out of a black quarterback too. So I think it was a little bit ahead of its time, but to a degree, I think a lot, of that conversation, that type of setting and scene was pretty on point.
You pretty much were the face of the Cowboys after Troy Aikman at the quarterback position was there. Did you and Troy Aikman have kind of like that passing of the baton or conversation?
We did not, unfortunately. We didn't. I've probably seen Troy maybe 3 times. I know he ducked his head in the coaches meeting a time or two. Quarterback coaches meet. Maybe seen him around the complex and maybe at an event. But our paths didn't cross that much.
Who were some of your mentors, like OGs, when you played?
When I played, Rocket Ismail was the OG of the locker room, not only for myself, but a lot of other, younger guys. Heading into my third year was Richie Anderson, who was a Bill Parcells guy and taught me a lot, preparation-wise. But Rocket, man, he was one special dude and still one special friend to this day. And the things that he was instilling in us. And it wasn't so all just football, but the game of life and having a relationship with God, was very instrumental. Me and Joey Galloway became really close. Joey's a little different though, he wasn't the most vocal guy, but when you got to really meet him on a personal level, Joey was a special dude. Darren Woodson was another, OG in the locker room and had us around. Now, somebody who wasn't playing at the time, but was instrumental for me is I spent a lot of time with Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders would have us out to the house, and we'll be having workouts with like Santana Moss and Antonio Bryan and Chad Johnson. So I had a lot of good guys around me. Dexter Copeland is another one that comes to mind, that really instilled a lot in me. I can go on for a couple more too, but
you have my attention with Deion. That's like a who's who. The guys that you mentioned, it's like that episode of Fresh Prince when Will had to call his close personal friend. Kadeem Hardison was on there, Heavy D. He was passing the baton on and on. I mean, you named a lot of personalities: Ocho Cinco, Deion, Santana Moss. What music was playing? What was the food like? What was that scene like? You just threw that in there. I got to know more.
Hey, listen. The funniest part or the most interesting part about being around Deion Sanders, he is the quietest dude you would ever think that wasn't, it's just his whole demeanor was just totally opposite than what I was expecting, but just a bunch of wisdom, just a real, just laid back, just spiritual human being who just wants to help people. So the guy I see on TV now, that's always reaching his hand out to help someone, him going down to Jackson State and revamping that program or adding to what legacy Jackson State already had, just don't surprise me. His walk with God. Nothing that, I see on TV surprises me, but the only thing that really shocked me is just how, quiet and just cool he was. I was thinking I was getting ready to be meeting this brash, just talk, but it just wasn't that, Deion's just a special human being. He is.
If you could compare Deion's influence on football to a basketball player, who would it be?
Wow. I gotta say Michael Jordan. From a standpoint of greatness on the field, to a whole new dimension of advertising yourself and getting all you can, off the field as far as commercials, shoes, and anything you can possibly think of as far as somebody maximizing, their self or their potential money-wise off the field. So I would have to compare him to Michael Jordan.
It's interesting because a couple of my basketball is my interest, but football is of interest because we intersect so much. But I always felt that Deion's influence was more Shaq-like than Michael, and some foot. But it's no knock to him. I just think the music, the shoes, the fashion, the swag. But see, Shaq was a center, but he was an abnormal center because he was. You don't see big people move like a little person, and Shaq does that. So but Deion to me moves flashy but quiet, like you said. He's a hybrid in that same regard, but Michael and Shaq are both successful nonetheless.
Yeah, but that's not a bad comparison right there.
No, Tony Romo was your backup when you were in Dallas, correct?
Yes.
Was he quiet, and did you know that he was going to be the success that he was when he was your backup?
Absolutely not. No, actually, it's funny, and I tell people this, and it's no knock, but it's just the truth. Sometimes I don't like to say it because, I try to stay humble, what have you. But I don't think Tony Romo would have made that team if I wouldn't have got cut in 2004. Because Vinny Testaverde was there. Drew Henson had a few dollars on the salary cap, and it was going to be tough, for Romo to make that team. But no, I didn't see it coming. My first couple of years with him, he was getting he was getting better, but he just wasn't there yet. And honestly, I don't think he started for a couple more seasons after I left. But no, and everybody will tell you, that he's getting better, he was making strides, but he just wasn't there yet.
So I was disappointed when you and the Cowboys parted ways, and I didn't necessarily understand a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And this is not a gotcha moment, but I am curious. The way that we have kind of moved in this world during the pandemic, there's a lot of people upset, a lot of frustration, substance abuse, and more. Do you feel like if the NFL had paid attention to some of the things then or things now like they did then, that it might be a different conversation in how they tackle substance abuse? Because I feel like a lot of people deal with depression and just pressure of being who they are.
Man, that's hard for me to say because I'm in recovery, and part of living a recovered life, man, is really looking at yourself in the mirror and self-reflecting. And I started a habit, at 17 years old that followed me, to me putting on that Dallas Cowboy uniform. I had numerous people around me that wanted to see me get help. Is there better ways that NFL are handling things now? Yes. Have they taken a deep dive look and maybe lessening the punishment on certain failed tests as far as marijuana? Yes. Are there better programs out here now that people to talk to? Yes, but you got to think now too. At the same time, people wasn't just running and telling everybody that they had a problem or something. Mental health wise was going on with them or something was bothering them. We harbored all those feelings and we stuffed them. And so until a lot more people came out, also, it made it a cool thing, to say, hey, I do have an issue. Hey, I do need to talk about something. Hey, I am smoking or drinking too much. So it's society too that's helped. But I don't like to make excuses. I really don't. I look myself in the mirror and say, hey, it was some things that you ignored. And some people that was reaching their hand out that maybe you could have gravitated to help you. So, that's kind of my approach. And I got to stand on that.
The Dallas Cowboys have a big matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. What do you make of the Eagles, and what do you make of the Cowboys this season?
Man, let's start with the Eagles first. They're a very interesting team. They control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I really like what Jalen Hurts, his ability, running and passing presents to a defense, and the problems that it presents to a defense. I got to be honest with you. Something is not all the way clicking with their offense like it had, last year. I think that's Coach Johnson. I think the coordinator getting a little bit more acquainted with Hurts and seeing what makes him tick. So I know that, that continuity and timing kind of takes time. But they're a tough football team. They're learning how to win any kind of way. And that's a dangerous football team. When you can make mistakes and then the defense takes up for you and, help them get a stop for you after you turned over the ball. I watched a few of their games this year. So they're winning in all kind of facets, whether it's, throwing for 300 plus yards or running, for 150 plus and grounding somebody out. So that's very impressive as a team. The Cowboys, honestly, as much as I love Dak Prescott and everything that, he's done for that franchise in the last 9 years, it's time that he takes that next step. And I'm sure he knows that. And anybody will tell you I'm the biggest Dak Prescott fan you may be looking at right now. But it's time for him to take that next step. But it's also time, for the defense to continue to keep taking that next step too, because I think they took a step back against the 49ers this year in the regular season. Now, last year they played them pretty well, in that playoff game. So it's time for everybody to gel and come together. This is one of these games this week that, unfortunately, they'll be judged for the rest of the season. It's not the end of the world. They don't show up, but it's time. It's time for it to gel. And these are one of these games that they can show the whole world.
The Eagles at 7-1 and the Dallas Cowboys at 5-2. Who you got on Sunday?
I got the Cowboys now. I told you I was a Dak Prescott fan. So I got the Cowboys. I got a close one, of course. It'll be tough up there in Philadelphia. But I got the Cowboys, man. I got Dak having a big game this Sunday. I really do. I think this is the breakout one, and he's not getting any help in that running game. But no excuses, though. But I got the Cowboys this weekend.
What do you remember most about playing against the Eagles when you were a Cowboys quarterback?
Well, the first memory is playing on that goddamn concrete in the vet. Good God almighty. I'll never forget that. But, man, their defense, comes to mind. The Dawkins and who they had? Trotter, I think, in the middle. Vincent at corner. Al Harris missing the other corner because Al Harris is actually in the slot. But that defense, man, and putting pressure on you, making you, make quick decisions and always being, around the football, whether you're running the football, shoot, 6-7 guys, 6-7 hats on the ball, or where you're rather throwing the football, is going to be some tight windows you were trying to complete passes through. So just playing a tough, rugged defense and knowing that you was in for a dogfight.
Yeah. What were the fans like?
Oh, they were brutal up in Philly. Oh, they were brutal. They were brutal in the vet. And then I also played in, what do you call it, Lincoln?
Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah, Lincoln Financial. Yeah, both places. They were brutal and it was loud. But it was louder in the vet. I mean, yeah, it was louder in the vet than it was in Lincoln, though. But shoot, they fans, they would talk to you the whole game.
We may mention of the Eagles, they lost one game this season. They lost to your former team, the New York Jets. Perfect segue there. Without Aaron Rodgers, are you shocked that they're still trying to hold it together?
I'm not. I thought that was a well put together roster. the last couple, 3 years. They had some good drafts. They picked up some key free agents. They play good, sound defense. It seems like, everybody likes the head coach. Is it Sella? I think Sella. Yeah, he looks like a New York guy, don't he? Yeah. So then, I've been able to watch them over the last couple of years, and they play hard. Their record hadn't showed it. They hadn't showed it the best. But the product you see on the football field and them playing hard, that's what I look for from good teams that wants to continue to get better. And they've been one of those teams that play really hard.
On Twitter, somebody put at the beginning of the season, what NBA player reminds you of Zak Wilson, the quarterback of the Jets? And I quote tweeted it and I said Ben Simmons, and it got people talking. And this was before the NBA season started. I said, has potential, can share the wealth, can put up numbers, but then disappoint you sometimes. And it came from a sincere place. You're a football guy. I'm a basketball guy. Do you see that comparison? And if not Ben Simmons, then who?
Oh, that's tough. Ben Simmons, I can't get past some of the decisions Ben has had to make to sit out. So I'll give Zak Wilson a fighting, competitive chance, at least showing up on Sundays. No knock against Ben. Hey, you got to make decisions for your family. But that would be tough for me to sit out. So I won't give him Ben Simmons. That's a tough one. Well, right now, what's my journeyman point guard? Eric Jack. So just scrappy. Sometimes he's going, give you 20, give you 10. But then sometimes, he's going to make some mistakes, but he comes and plays hard. And that's what I see out of Zak Wilson. I wasn't all that fond of him. At first, they took him pretty high. But I do see a guy that's really improving, especially this year. I see a guy that's really improving and is keeping them in the games. He's solid. He's more solid than people think he is. And will surprise you with some throws he makes, too. So he's growing on me, actually. And you're looking at me right now like, I don't see the Jared Jack right.
Listen, it's not that I don't see it. It's funny. I was watching League Pass the other night, and I was watching Jared Jack on the bench as an assistant under with the Pistons. Wherever Monty goes, Jared goes. But Jared Jack had a dynamic game, but when he was on, he was on. When he wasn't, he wasn't. But he was a brilliant basketball mind. He is a brilliant basketball mind. So I'm not anti it. I'm just processing it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what you think later.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how these Cowboys play, and more. I want to get into this really quick. You talked about Deion, and you talked about his coaching mind, and more. You are coaching in your home state of Georgia as well. Your high school.
Yep, right at my alma mater.
Decatur, to be exact.
Decatur, Georgia.
Yes. Is that cool to be the big man on campus once again?
I don't know about the big man on campus, but man, because I'm not the head coach, but it's a dream come true. Everything feels, it just feels in place. It feels like like I should be where I am. To walk those halls, a lot of memories come back. We're definitely dealing with a different athlete now, of course, but it just feels right. And it feels like I should be there. It does.
Do they have you telling stories like you're telling today?
A little bit, but the youngins, they like to prove that they're already better than you. So they don't even want to hear what you got to say so much about your old playing days. They trying to prove, which I like. They trying to prove to you, hey, that they know about you and know some things that we accomplished. But they're trying to prove to you, hey, I got some juice to myself too.
I like it. Brother, you have been a wealth of knowledge. For y'all listening, we were talking off air. I watched him on TV when I was in college, and he was surprised that I reached out to him. It's cool to see somebody that you watched on TV grace you and tell those war stories. Thank you so much for your time.
Man, thanks for having me, Scoop.
Yeah.